and we have the studio line that's to receiving calls for questions or comments or anything you want to share with regards to becoming a mother. And you can reach us on 0116 482 2086. You can SMS, so text us or WhatsApp us on 077 488 55055. You can contact us on Facebook, Instagram. We're on YouTube, LinkedIn, TikTok, Twitter, or X as it's called now, and Spotify. So alhamdulillah, thank you for joining us again this week with I guess it's a carrying on from the conversation that we had last week with Helena. And the reason that I am doing this series is because I believe that we deserve better. We deserve better in terms of the care that we receive. We deserve better in terms of the way that we give birth to our children. We deserve better overall as mums, Muslim mums, anyone, everyone out there who is becoming a parent or is a parent. So today's episode is hopefully going to be giving you some insight into how different experiences can shape us as mothers. And inshallah, we'll also be able to get some feedback and some comments from people listening at home. So why I wanted to do today's topic and sharing the account of a mother who's experienced different birth experiences is because we have so many options when it comes to giving birth. And I think that a lot of us go into the maternity system thinking that, what we're being told as a recommendation from the healthcare professional in front of us may be our only experience or our only option or choice. And what I've noticed through the work that I do, so those of you who are listening last week will remember I shared my experience that I've been working as a practicing midwife for the past 11 years. I also have experience as a privately working midwife. And I also, I forgot to tell you that I also teach. So I'm involved in education as well. And from all of these varied experiences, what I have noticed is that the things that women are offered as part of a guideline, so a hospital guideline, isn't offered to them as their only choice. And I don't mean this in a way that, people should be scared of what they are choosing or what they're being offered of. Not at all. But what we don't do or what we're not aware to do is to go away and think about or look into what our options are. We often are I guess we're groomed to make those decisions that the person who's offered us is the specialist, and therefore that must be the only option that we have. So I hope this episode today is going to leave you with some wisdom of being able to question what you're being told or what you're being offered. And inshallah, it will help us to make better choices. So just before we get started and introduce our mum of three, the studio line is 0116 482 2086. Please call with any comments or feedback or questions that you might have. You can send a text or WhatsApp to 077 488 55055. And through the various social media channels, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, you can also send in your comments or questions, inshallah. So today's guest is mum of three, who will be sharing her 3 birth experiences. And I have to say, absolutely, she's commendable. She's only given birth last week, and she's a new mum. So she's taken time out to talk to you all and me today. So we will be sharing with her. We'll be sharing her via Zoom. So I'm in the studio alone today, but she will be coming in on a virtual video call link, inshallah. So we're just going to get Yusayra on.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam, Yusayra. Jazakallah for joining us today, and just like I said, huge commendations that you're joining us at such a sensitive time as well, because you're newly postnatal yourself.
Alhamdulillah, yeah. It's it's actually really strange that you're introducing me as mum of 3, because I'm still getting used to it, having a third. We've just been mum of 2 for
a while
until last week. Yeah.
What do your children make of number 3 then?
Oh, they absolutely adore him. aggressively adore him. He's been licked by his older brother. Wait,
Nice.
he's two. Yeah, yeah, very nice. He gave him a lick and then he giggled. He's also yeah, he's been poked and prodded enough. MashaAllah. But yeah, he's
Mashallah.
they absolutely dote on him. I think there's like that concern before the new one comes that will the other ones be jealous? But alhamdulillah, when the second one came, the first one wasn't. I wasn't allowed to hold other people's babies, but when it
Mm-hmm.
came to our new baby, it was like, no, this is ours. So
Uh,
they've taken really well to the new edition, alhamdulillah.
Mashallah. So, three different birth experiences, and I'll start off with the age gaps between your children.
So they are more or less exactly 2 years apart.
Okay,
So my
alhamdulillah.
second just turned a week ago, and the first one turned 4 last month.
Mashallah,
So
you've got your
yeah,
hands full.
alhamdulillah.
So, Yusari, your birth experiences with number one. So, as a mum who knew absolutely nothing, what was your thought process when it came to making choices about where you were going to give birth?
So initially I just went to the GP, let them know, and then they got me the appointment with the community midwife. I think I had two appointments with the midwife at the GP surgery.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw a leaflet for home birth. I think it was at the hospital for
Mm-hmm.
my 12-week scan. I'm not sure, I can't remember exactly, or it was at the GP surgery. It was a long time ago. Um, and so I just rang them up because I thought, oh, this looks interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know this was an option. I just saw the NHS leaflet for it, the Leicester's hospital's leaflet. I rang them
Mm-hmm.
up and they explained the process and they said we can come and see you and explain everything to you and you can see if you want to, you know, go move from the community midwives to the home birth midwives.
Mm-hmm.
And I did, and I'm so glad. Alhamdulillah. I'm
Mashallah.
so glad.
What did you think about home birth prior to seeing that leaflet? Was it ever something that you have even thought was a possibility?
I never really thought of it because, yeah, I didn't think it was an option
Mm.
until I saw the leaflet. I didn't even know it existed. Yeah. Because you just think of sort of called
Hospitals as being,
midwife,
yeah, yeah,
that was something that happened in the past. And
yeah.
now everyone, so I knew about birthing centers. I knew about the different options within hospitals because people around me who'd given birth are like, oh, I had this room or
Mm-hmm.
I was in the birthing center. So I knew all of that. I did not know that home birth was an option at all.
So you went into it completely, no expectations. You didn't know what to expect until your care started with the home birth team.
Exactly, yeah. And from that first meeting, I was like, yeah,
You were
this is what I
sold.
want. Yeah,
I'm really glad because I know the feedback I had from last week's show was absolutely phenomenal. I mean, I owe Helen at present, and I am going to drop it off, Helen, if you're listening, because she was just amazing in her delivery of what they do and how simplistic things can unfold. Obviously, people do need to be in hospital for birth. For various different reasons, and that's not to take away from people who need to be in hospital, but we're exploring different birth options in today's show, and I want you to then share what then unfolded for your first labour and birth experience, Yusera.
so before I actually forget, I'm just going to skip to the second one, but I'll
Mm-hmm.
come back to that.
Yeah.
Helena was my midwife for my second.
Mashallah.
Oh, she was awesome, mashallah. Do you know, I remember being in active labor saying, Helena, what a beautiful name, Helena. Subhanallah.
Mashallah.
That's why I remember her name so well. Oh, she was awesome. But I'll come back to that. So the first experience. Um, so for the first one, I did all the preparations. I had
Mm-hmm.
the birth pool stuff ready. I cleared the space in my living room. I said, this is where the pool's going to go. This is um, they say to keep shower curtains to cover
Cover the
your
floor
space. So
with,
then
yeah, yeah.
so I had everything ready. And I'll be honest that my parents were very skeptical. They alhamdulillah came the day before I gave birth.
Mm-hmm.
They were like, oh, are you sure you just don't want to go to the hospital? Because that's what we know.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously they have the worries that what if something happens?
Mm-hmm.
You're not near the hospital. What if you need urgent care or something? It did so happen that I ended up in hospital.
Mm-hmm.
The labor progressed very quickly,
Mm-hmm.
and I was so when I rang the midwives, I'd already been, had contractions for about half an hour to 45 minutes by then.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and they'd just gone into another birth, so they weren't available. They
Right.
did offer that I could go to the St. Mary's Birth Centre because there was one of the home birth midwives there, so I can have
Mm-hmm.
the continuity of care from them. Um, but I wouldn't have had time. I had to.
Yeah.
I need. I
And that's
was
probably.
ready to give birth. So then I ended up at the General Hospital.
Mm-hmm.
I went straight in. I was in active labour, and that was it. Baby was born. Um, so there wasn't much time to have any interventions, to nothing for anything to happen. I was just there, born, baby. Alhamdulillah. I did have third degree tears with this, the first, so then I was taken
Mm-hmm.
into theatre, and um, so that was a whole new experience as well.
Mm-hmm.
But Alhamdulillah, I'd say overall, I had a very positive birth experience. And I think that does come down to possibly um, mental preparation, I think, and the
Mm-hmm.
support I received, definitely the support I received before and after birth. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So to clarify for listeners, if you are booked for home birth and there's only, so there's usually on a shift, especially if it's on call, there's 3 midwives from the home birth team on. So if 2 are at Bath and one of them is supporting the birth centres within Leicestershire, then it would be recommended that you go into hospital. Unless a second midwife could be called to you. So for that reason, that's probably the recommendation that Yusera had to go into the hospital because
Yeah.
there wasn't a second midwife to cover. So
Yeah.
it sounds like although things didn't go to plan, and as we know that we don't plan birth in that way, but having the variables being supported makes a huge difference. So knowing that you have that support, the continuity before and after makes the world of a difference.
And also, just yeah, afterwards, so all my appointments were done by the home birth team, and afterwards as well, they were the same sort of midwives, midwives who came. And
Mm-hmm.
even if I saw a different midwife, I know that that whole team have the same outlook and the
Mm-hmm.
same sort of
They have the
like
same ethos, don't they?
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And that really, really helps. Definitely.
The thing about the continuities, getting to know the person that's going to be looking after you is it does make and research shows it makes a huge difference to people's experiences. So when it came to choosing options for number 2, I'm guessing it was a done deal for you.
Yeah, I didn't even so you can directly just call the home birth team. You don't have to go through your GP.
Yep.
So for number 2 and 3, I just did that. I went straight to
Booked
them
straight with them.
and we were sorted. Yeah.
How
Um,
how was your second birth experience different from your first?
so it was actually very similar in the way labor progressed.
Mm-hmm.
My third was entirely a whole different ball game.
Mm-hmm.
And I learned a lot in the third, and it's very fresh. So I'll share that with you, inshallah, soon.
Inshallah.
So the second one, the same thing. So both births were very quick. They more or less started at the same time as well. The only difference is with the second, now I have my daughter upstairs sleeping.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and my parents, alhamdulillah, came again the day before I gave birth. So my dad was upstairs with my daughter. It was the middle of the night, so everyone was sleeping. Um, so I had no concerns where I was like, if she wakes up, my granddad's there.
Mm-hmm.
She's not going to come downstairs. I gave birth downstairs. So the labor progressed just the same way, except I was home. So because I had the first one very fast, I called the midwife very early,
Mm-hmm.
almost straight away, and let them know they arrived, and it was so smooth. I had my own space. Um, it was nice because my mom and my husband could go in. They went to pray their salah because
Mm-hmm.
Fajr time just came in.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so they went to pray. and they sort of took turns to be by my side. Um, it was very calm, very, very calm. And the midwives don't poke and prod or get involved. They're like, when you need us, we are here. And I love that because I like to have that space to just be in my zone and to focus on the birth and to focus on my breathing. And so there's no in and out, there's no like harsh lights. There's no, I can control the lighting in my house. I can control where I am in my house. Alhamdulillah. It was so the actual way I'd say the labor progress was more or less the same, but it was a much even more wonderful experience, alhamdulillah, because I didn't have to go anywhere. I was in my house. And then afterwards so I did have some stitches. They got me ready. They got baby ready. My daughter came down to see baby. And then I went upstairs and got into my bed, went to sleep.
Exactly.
Which was the best thing ever. I just got in my bed and went to sleep. And I was like, alhamdulillah. I don't have to be anywhere else.
No.
But it is, I had a lot of support because my mum was here as well with me. So like I had that support, and she, I don't have to think of anything after that. So which I know is one of the reservations people have. If I'm in my own house, it's going to worry me. And if there's, stuff to do, then I'm going to want to clean up, and I'm going to want to, and the kids, and I'm going to worry. And I know that's one of the reservations. A lot of people tell me that, no, I can't relax in my own house because there's too much stuff to do. And I totally get that. I do. But yeah, I would say that can be part of the preparation to sort of maybe, if we have support, to reach out to that support and say, once I give birth, can you come and sort of tidy everything up and sort it out? But then it would be the same if you went into hospital, because you can go into hospital and come back and still have to deal with your house.
Absolutely. I think that people think of they think they feel safer in the hospital for birth, or but actually it's post-birth, it's that rest, it's that support which you don't then have access to, because like you said, your mum could have tucked you, made you something to eat, you've eaten, it's not done as part of like a schedule or part of someone's tick list, a job list, because that's what does happen once baby's born. There are tasks to be done. There's a lot of paperwork involved from a midwifery perspective, and you're then waiting on someone else's clock, aren't you? You're waiting to be moved, you're waiting to be transferred, and hey, let's not even lie about the comfort of your own home compared to that in a hospital. We know that those comforts are not the same. And you can eat what you want, you can have your cup of tea when you want. You're not then waiting for someone to come and get anything. Your family, your support network is there. And I do understand, because I know someone will say to me, but Tasneem, that's a luxury. That's a luxury for some people to choose. Yeah. And I understand that, because some people may not have family nearby. But again, when you look at the services that we have available to us in Leicester, we're not making the most of them. And that's people like the home birth team and the wider sort of community peer support that we can access. And it's different for people who have support. But I guess it's also just exploring, would it work for you? Would it not work for you? It may be that you, want to book with the home birth team and then potentially need to go into the hospital, but you'd still have that support once you came out of the hospital. So it's just about understanding that there are options.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that having the options, and looking into the options really can help us with that gratefulness to Allah that we have these options.
Absolutely.
It's such a blessing. And they're all free. We can pay for more if we want to, but it's all free. And that is such a blessing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us, by having us, allowing us to stay here.
Absolutely. And we only have to look at what's happening around the world to make us think, when we see about the atrocities that women are facing in Gaza, giving birth in such horrific conditions, to think that, yes, we have so much to be grateful for here in Leicester, alhamdulillah. We have clean facilities. We have people who are falling over themselves to look after us. And we have such privilege compared to those around the world.
Absolutely.
Any questions that anyone listening has, please just share your thoughts, your own musings. It's not just about me and Yusera talking today. Please give the studio line a call on 0116 482 2086. You can text us or WhatsApp us your comments or feedback, questions, anything that you want to talk to us about. 077 488 55055. We've got a question come in. Hi, I'm on the fence. I'll say Assalamu alaikum. I'm on the fence re home baths. What would you say to gynecology doctors who don't recommend home baths? Because if there are any risks, then at least there is a doctor and all possible interventions there. So the thing about home birth is there's a lot of risk assessment involved. So the doctors and midwives, they have protocols which they have to follow to ensure that women who are looked after at home are safe. And like Helena had mentioned last week, I don't know whether you were able to listen, but during a home birth, there's a lot of monitoring going on, but monitoring that is not very visible. So it's a lot of observation. There's a lot of keeping an eye on things without the mum realizing that there is something, that someone's keeping an eye on her. And midwives are experts at this. So we have been at hundreds of births to be able to develop the skill and knowledge to understand something's not quite right here and I need to know a little bit more about this. So about home births, they are absolutely safe for those who are suitable for home births. And even if you're deemed as being high risk by a doctor or obstetrician or gynae, don't really have much say within, because the sort of specialty is called obstetrics. If they're recommending that you don't have a home birth, then you must look into it and find out more information. So what are your specific risks? What information is there out there? So there's some really amazing charities that raise awareness about birth rights. So your rights in labour and birth. And that's birthrights.org. And there's also AIMS. And they're charities who work to inform and educate women about their options. And they have so much information available on their websites. You can also contact them for help and advice. So that's something that you can look into. But one thing that I will say, and something that I really want to drive home, is that when it comes to this notion of risk, a risk is inevitably a chance. And Yusera, I know that you'll agree with me on this, is that we have beautiful instruction, example, we have commandments from Allah that tell us that we, what we may need to give birth to our children. It is an incredibly intense time for a mother to go through, and having been through it myself, it's a really intense sensation. It's painful. But the thing about these waves and these contractions that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has designed for our body to birth our babies is, I believe from the knowledge that I have and all the research and everything that I do as a midwife, that Allah's mercy is within those waves to help us become mothers, to sacrifice us, just to give that sacrifice up until the point where we physically can't be anymore. And that's what a contraction feels like. But when it brings it back and you have that peace and that rest and that respite in between every contraction, you're then pushed to your very edge of existence. And I think that this sort of wave coming back and forth between this period of labour makes us mothers. If it was easy to have a baby, we'd just press a button, baby was born. We'd keep pressing that button, but we wouldn't really care for the baby. We'd just keep having more children without actually having that emotional attachment, the bond. And I think that's what labour has been designed for us as women to do, to be pushed to our absolute limit, so we can sacrifice that for another small human, a tiny version of us, a tiny part of us. And we place a lot of importance on the medicalization of childbirth, thinking at least someone's going to be there to help me. But actually, when you look at the example, and I talk about this a lot when I say, Maryam alayhi salam, there was no one around her. And I'm not saying that and I have to, to just put a disclaimer there that not everyone is going to be suitable for this low risk, intervention-free birth, and I completely understand that. But the problem I have is, and the problems that I'm seeing is that more and more people are choosing these interventions even when they don't need them, and that's the part where I want people to know that there's experiences out there like Usaira's that are, that are beautiful, that are the start of a beautiful journey as motherhood. Because if we have a difficult time through these interventions and the medicalization, etc., then that impacts us as mothers in the postnatal period. It can lead to feeding difficulties. It can lead to difficulties with bonding. There's a greater risk of something like postnatal depression, which we won't be going into today, but it's just sort of trying to summarize the fact that, we talk about these interventions and risks, but actually just walking into a hospital, you're putting yourself at risk of all these interventions anyway. So you're more likely to have a cesarean section if you're going to the hospital. You're more likely to have an epidural if you're going to the hospital. And that's the flip side. Why aren't we thinking about this? Why aren't we thinking that we're more at risk of X, Y, Z if we go into a hospital?
If I may,
Sure.
so as I mentioned, my parents were a bit skeptical. My dad was very worried.
Mm-hmm.
And I think after my second one, the midwives actually showed him they bring life-saving equipment and how they prepare and what they do.
Mm-hmm.
And they had a really so they stay 2 hours after birth. So I don't know when this chat happened. But yeah, and he was convinced, and that yeah, and when he saw how everything went so smoothly for me, alhamdulillah, in the second one, he was just convinced that this was a really, really good idea, actually. Um, and yeah, and then I also, so in the first one, I did really, really think of these risks because it's not, we are trained to think. And I did get, so somebody said, oh no, but my son needs this straight after birth, or my child needed this straight after birth. And the hot doctor, I needed the doctor there, and I understood. So I actually drove from my house to General Hospital, and I was like, well, in the car without the ambulance, it takes 6 minutes. So I'll be there in 6 minutes if I need to be there. Inshallah. And alhamdulillah, for the second one, I didn't need that. For the third, it was a bit different. But just before, I know you're going to ask me about that anyway, but you mentioned Maryam alayhi salam, and in in the ayah of Maryam alayhi salam where she's given birth, it says, she said, Ya laytani mittu. Like, I wish I'd died قبل هذا, before this. I wish I'd died before this, because it was so painful. And obviously she grew up in isolation. She wouldn't even know that what this pain is. And that those words of hers stuck with me in my birth.
Yeah.
So I'm like, well,
Oh,
Maryam alayhi salam
we've
felt
got a
this.
call
Oh,
coming.
sorry.
Sorry, Sarah. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam. Sorry, I didn't realize the phone was on.
That's okay. What's your name?
My name's Shayza.
Hi, Faiza. How can we answer your question?
Oh, I didn't have a question. I just wanted to call in to encourage any moms who are considering home birth to do it, because I gave birth to my fourth child at home just a few weeks ago in Leicester. It was a good experience, and I actually had you as my midwife for my third child, and you recommended home birth, and I didn't go for it because I was worried about the mess, and I was worried about just general fears that you've been talking about on the show.
Yeah.
And then with the fourth, I thought it would just be a lot easier with the kids being at home, and it was actually really good, and I'm glad we made that decision to do it at home.
Oh, that's absolutely amazing, Faiza. I'm so sorry I can't place you from experience from the experiences I've had with women recently. So I'm guessing it's not recent that I saw you, but I'm so glad that my words helped you and moved you in the direction of a better experience. Alhamdulillah. Thank you so much for sharing that with us.
No, that's okay. I'm enjoying the talk today.
Oh, that's brilliant. I'm really glad. Is there anyone that you want to shout out to, give salams to? And I know this is not what I know that's what we used to do as kids on the radio. So here, I'm giving you your moment.
No, not really, but just to everyone. Hi, everyone.
Salams to everyone listening. Jazakallah Faiza. Thank you so much for calling in. Really appreciate
That's
it.
all right.
Assalamu
That's okay.
alaikum.
Islam. Bye.
Love is bye. So Yusera, you know, this whole show, this whole show is planned around sort of talking about your experiences. And funnily enough, we're running out of time, which I didn't even realize how quickly this time goes by. But I'm going to ask you to sum up your third birth experience, please.
So this was different, and everybody had told me this is the third one's always different, and but it was very different. It wasn't better or worse. It was just different. So with the first two, from the first pain I got to the birth, it was like 3 hours, and alhamdulillah. And it was like the way it progressed was the contractions came with they came closer together, they increased in intensity, and then the baby was born. So it's very systematic. With this one, I had like a few contractions and then I had nothing. I called the midwives because I thought that's it. Now, my parents weren't here this time. It's Ramadan, so I told them, don't worry, inshallah, I'll be fine. I need, you can, they live 2 hours away. So, and then and then I went to sleep. I actually went to sleep and I thought that's so strange. So, so the midwives came and actually, this is where I thought, Alhamdulillah, I'm at home. Because, so shout out to Sam and Trina, who are the midwives with me this time. They said, well, look, your contractions seem irregular. Why don't you put something on to soothe yourself, calm down? Because you seem to get, I think inside I was getting worried that why is it not like the other ones? Because this is, put some prayers on. And she told me to put prayers on and reminded me that, look, put something that's going to calm you down. And they stepped out for a bit just to give me some space. And I put on Surah Maryam because just listening to the Maryam alayhi salam's, just listen to Surah Maryam actually gives me so much strength. And in fact, I thought it would be the part about birth is usually the part where I tend to get the strength from her. But this time I was just lying down and focusing on the words of the ayat. It wasn't about the birth part. It was where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells Zakaria alayhi salam that he's gonna that he's gonna have a child, and that it was the tawakkul there where he's saying, well, we're old, how can we? And that sort of reassurance that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given, well, no, this is the glad tidings. It's easy for Allah. It says, Allah actually says, it's easy for me. That ayah just calmed me because I thought, well, Allah can do anything. So he can bring me through this. And I really appreciate the midwife telling me in that moment, because when you're worrying, you don't even know what to do next, telling me, go put some prayers on, calm down. And I fell asleep listening to Surah Maryam. And then I woke up, had a few more contractions, called the midwives again. And I said, well, no, they're irregular again. I actually went back to sleep. And now at this point, when I woke up again, they were a greater in intensity, but I am worrying in the back of my head, what if I don't give birth before the kids wake up? They're sleeping and they've been waking up so much the last few weeks. What's going to happen? And I actually asked the midwife, are you going to check me? Do you want to know how far along I am? She said, well, that's not going to help. Because you could be 2 centimeters now, and then the next 15 minutes, you could be ready to push. Like
Absolutely.
this. No. And I'm so glad she gave me that, because I didn't want interventions. I was just freaking out myself. And she calmed me down. She told me, go back in the bath, soak, relax, don't worry. You calm yourself down. And my friend gave me these affirmation cards, and so she put ayat, and then she put like a message. So she put like an ayah, and then put a message saying like, I am calm. Every pain I go through will be compensated. I have trust in Allah. Whatever's linking to the ayah. She knows me and she knows the Quran, so she's the best person to put together these cards for me.
We need to talk to her about these affirmation cards.
Oh, I'm on it. I'm saying I want these. I want people to have these. They're fantastic. Subhanallah. So I had those, and I'd read them all before, so they were just there, but I'm reminding myself what's in them, talking to myself, alhamdulillah. And then because we were home, my husband got to have his sahri, his suhoor, peacefully. He ate, he started, he and then the baby was born actually just exactly the time of Fajr. Fajr was at 4 or 6, and he was born at 4 or 6. And alhamdulillah, my husband had started his fast, and it was different. It was a lot longer, and I think this one, the other two, there wasn't much time for me to even think. I was just focused on the breathing and the laboring. And this time I had that time to focus on, I'd say maybe it's the blessing of Ramadan, like focus on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, focus on that tawakkul. And as you mentioned before, like we don't have, birth is the one time, and not just birth, the whole from conception to babies and post having children is where it really, we don't have any control at
we don't.
all. And that taking it and back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that trust, to have that tawakkul in him. And that's where we tie our camel.
Yes.
We look into, so if I had been told, no, you're super high risk, you need to go into hospital, I would have looked into those options. But alhamdulillah, I was told you're okay at home. I did what I could, had everything in place as we could, and then it's just up to Allah. Like, and I and this last one really brought that to light, to the forefront, that I'm the same person, but now this experience was entirely different to my two other children, and that was all in Allah's plan. And I'm so glad, because I think we needed that time to rest and for my husband to eat before his fast starts. And Allah knows what we need, not what we want. And then it was different, because baby's oxygen was slightly low after birth, so I was transferred to hospital. That wasn't the best experience initially, but I'm glad the home birth midwives were there, because they do a good handover. And whilst they were with me in the hospital, I felt very safe. And then they left, and that's when the problem started. I was sort of left in the hospital and wasn't communicated with. I had no idea where my baby was for quite some time. I had no idea what was happening. I was told he had an infection, he's on antibiotic drips, and then I was told, no, he hasn't. So it was all very confusing. But then there was one lovely midwife who came and spoke to me, and it calmed me down. And by that evening, I just thought, well, Allah's put me here. I have to make the most of it.
There's a reason behind that as well.
And there absolutely was, because I don't think I have had, so I was put into a room by myself, because I didn't have my baby with me for the first night. So alhamdulillah, they put me, so I'm not listening to other babies cry through the whole night. It was very, I'm so glad. And yeah, when so I had to go down to feed him in the neonatal unit, but I haven't had that much peace and quiet in a long time. I have two other ones. So the next day when he came up and he was next to me, and my children came to visit and they went home, I just sat back and thought, right, I'm going to make the most of this silence. Just silence, inshallah, for 12 hours. And alhamdulillah, Allah put me there for a reason. He knew Allah knows me better than I know myself. Absolutely. Maybe I did need that silence, because when I came back, we had lots of poking and prodding, mashallah. They were just too excited. Alhamdulillah.
3 very different birth experiences from the same mother. And Yusra, as I said, I can't thank you enough for coming on the show, given that you are so busy and so just, there's a lot going on for you, having 3 young children and having recently just given birth yourself. Jazakallah khairan for coming on and sharing your stories with us. We have a beautiful instruction given to us by the Almighty, but we place a lot of reliance and weight on the medicalization of birth and believe it to be better for us. There are times, and I say this as a healthcare professional, that we need this intervention. We need someone to support us. We need an intervention to help us. However, we are raising a generation of weak, comfortable and compliant youth. And we need to be questioning and analysing what kind of effect our choices that we make are having on our families, our health and our belief. because, people think it's just about, you get pregnant, have a baby, you bring the child up, but actually we're bringing up the next generation of youth who will then go on to take our legacy and move it forward. And we need to be thinking about the impact of the choices that we make at birth as mothers is affecting our youth. And it's a really deep and it's quite a hard-hitting subject. I get a lot of messages, well, I couldn't, like this, and I completely understand, you can't make choices that you don't know are available to you. So the things that I want to just say to mothers who are listening, expectant mothers, grandmothers who may have young daughters, or daughters who may be getting married or recently married, research your options, make birth preference lists and understand your rights in childbirth, question recommendations and intervention which is being offered, and make informed choices. Because unless you're being wheeled down to a theatre because your baby needs to be born in an emergency, you have time. Hopefully by doing this we can empower not only our health and ourselves, but it can change and elevate our belief too. Hospital guidelines may not always be based on current evidence, and therefore it's really important to educate yourselves about what is offered, what is right for you, and informed decision making throughout your pregnancy, labour and birth. And I hope that you will join me next week, inshallah, in talking about nutrition and physical movement, so exercise in pregnancy. So I'll be joined next week by the absolutely amazing Lucy. She's also a home birth midwife. There's definitely a theme going on here with these musings on Radio Ramadan. However, Lucy is also part of a wider movement around staying active in pregnancy, and she's just completed the Chief Nurse Fellowship. So she is promoting change from within her role, and is a really, really wonderful midwife as well. So I will be joined by her, and hopefully I will also be joined by a really lovely mum of one currently called Habiba, who lives a lifestyle of really, really important nutrition and lifestyle. So lifestyle is in she has an alternative background, but I'll let her talk about that herself next week, inshallah. She's also a nurse by profession, so she has a wealth of information and experience to bring along with her. So I'm just going to open out the show to any last questions that might be in before the show finishes today, inshallah. And Yusayra, jazakallah khairan again, once again, for joining us and sharing your experiences. I think that
it's my pleasure.
People have found a real comfort in your words, especially because I think that you say the things that I am not qualified to say, that I don't have enough knowledge about myself. I'm only trying my best to try and inform and educate, but you bring a definitely a different perspective on it, and I really appreciate you coming and sharing your journey with us.
Jazakallah khair for inviting me. It was. I'm glad I came. People like, are you sure you're on Radio Ramadan? Like, I'm not host this time. I'm just being interviewed. I'm okay. I'm just gonna relax and get interviewed. No, but the real tawakkul, just to focus on. And do you know, if everybody's experience is different, if you end up in a hospital, if you have interventions, we obviously you have to process and we advocate for ourselves as much as possible, but in the end, only Allah knows why He gave you that experience.
Absolutely 100%. We can do what we can. We tie our camels, and we believe that Allah will take us where we need to be, and take us through what we need to go through to get to where we need to be, inshallah. Inshallah. So just a reminder, join me next week. We'll be talking all things pregnancy and nutrition. And I thank you so much, Jazakallah khairan, for all those who are listening. And I hope that this show has brought you some new information, new knowledge, and that you've enjoyed my musings for today.